In a silent courtroom, all eyes froze on a young black girl no older than 8. With trembling hands, she slowly raised her finger, pointing straight at a uniformed officer towering before her. Gasps rippled through the room, but the child's gaze never wavered. What could a little girl possibly reveal that would bring an entire courtroom to a standstill? And why did the man in uniform suddenly shift uncomfortably under her innocent stare? This moment would change everything, but not in the way anyone expected.
Before that unforgettable day in court, the young girl's world was much simpler. Her name was Maya, a bright child with braided hair and a smile that could light up a room. She loved drawing colorful houses, skipping rope with her friends, and racing her little brother to the corner store. To her, life was about laughter, games, and bedtime stories whispered by her grandmother. But beneath that innocence, her family carried quiet struggles. They lived in a small neighborhood where sirens echoed far too often, and trust in authority was fragile at best. Maya was too young to understand why her mother grew tense whenever flashing lights filled their street, or why her father warned her to always be careful around certain people. Still, Maya held on to childhood's shield of hope. To her, the world was supposed to be fair. Good people should be safe, and wrongdoers should be held accountable. That belief made her curious, outspoken, and unafraid to ask questions adults sometimes avoided. Yet life was about to teach her how quickly innocence could collide with harsh reality. One evening, a chain of events unfolded. Events that would draw Maya into a place no child should ever have to stand. A courtroom, face to face with the very symbol of authority she had been taught to respect. The question was no longer whether Maya understood the world, but whether the world was ready to hear the truth from a child's voice. The night everything changed began like any other. Maya and her family were walking home from a late church gathering, the streets dim but familiar. Her father held her hand tightly, her mother carrying her brother half asleep on her shoulder. It was quiet, until red and blue lights flashed suddenly, washing their faces in harsh color. A police cruiser pulled up beside them, its engine humming low, its presence heavy. 2 officers stepped out, their eyes locked not on the parents, but on Maya's father. With clipped, commanding voices, they ordered him to stop. Maya didn't understand why. Her father had done nothing. He had simply been walking home. The air grew tense. Her father tried to explain calmly, his voice steady, his hands visible at his sides. But suspicion dripped from every word the officer spoke, as if his skin alone was reason enough to justify their scrutiny. Maya clung to her mother, sensing danger, even though she couldn't name it. Neighbors peeked from windows, whispers carried through the street, yet no one stepped forward. To Maya, it felt as though the world had suddenly turned against her family. She saw her father being questioned harshly, treated not as a man, but as a threat. The officer's tone grew sharper, their movements more aggressive. Fear crawled into Maya's chest. And then, one of the officers grabbed her father's arm. Maya's mother shouted, pleading for them to stop. The scene spiraled, loud voices overlapping, her little brother crying. Maya's eyes widened as she saw the fear on her father's face, a fear she had never seen before. That night ended with handcuffs, flashing lights, and silence that lingered long after the cruiser drove away. For Maya, it was a wound carved into memory. She couldn't forget the humiliation, the injustice, the way her father's dignity had been stripped in front of her eyes. Days later, when the family was called into court, Maya was confused. Why was her father, gentle, hard-working, loving, treated as though he had done something wrong? And why did the very officers who had caused the pain now stand tall, protected by their uniform? The truth weighed heavily on her small shoulders. She knew what she had seen. She knew what was real. But in a place where power decided whose voice mattered, could her own words as a child even be heard? The moment was coming when Maya would be forced to face the authority that had shattered her trust. And in that courtroom, one choice would determine whether her voice stayed hidden or shook the silence.
The courtroom was silent, heavy with the weight of power and expectation. Maya sat nervously on the wooden bench, her small legs unable to reach the floor. Her father sat nearby, his eyes lowered, the chains of injustice invisible yet crushing. Across the room, the officer who had humiliated him stood tall in his uniform, a symbol of authority, untouchable by ordinary people. When Maya's name was called, every heartbeat echoed like thunder in her chest. She walked to the witness stand, clutching the railing with trembling hands. To her, the courtroom felt enormous, its walls towering, its faces distant, its silence demanding truth. The judge's voice was calm, yet firm. "Do you understand why you are here, child?" Maya nodded slowly. She was told to speak only what she had seen. Her throat tightened. She remembered the flashing lights, her father's fear, her mother's cries, the officer's harsh grip. The memories burned inside her, too sharp for someone so young. Then came the moment. The officer's lawyer asked if she could identify the man who had acted that night. Maya hesitated, the entire room holding its breath. She turned, her small finger rising with courage greater than her years, pointing directly at the officer in uniform. Gasps broke the silence. The officer shifted, his confidence cracking under the gaze of a child. In that instant, innocence collided with authority, truth pierced through power, and the balance of the courtroom began to change. But what followed next, what was revealed after Maya's brave stand, was something no one in that room could have prepared for.
The silence that followed Maya's brave gesture felt endless. For the first time, the officer's authority wavered, exposed by the truth spoken through the eyes of a child. Though the courtroom did not erupt into applause, the shift in the air was undeniable. People leaned forward, whispers spreading, because when innocence pointed to injustice, even the powerful could not hide behind their uniforms. The trial carried on with its procedures, but Maya's testimony lingered like a spark in the room. Her words did not erase the pain her family endured, nor did they immediately dismantle the walls of prejudice standing tall before them. Yet they planted a seed, one that reminded everyone watching that even the smallest voice could carry unimaginable weight. For Maya, the experience carved a scar she would never forget. Childhood innocence had been stolen, replaced with the sobering knowledge that fairness was not promised to everyone. Still, from that day on, she carried herself differently. Not broken, but awakened. She had seen injustice with her own eyes and had stood against it, even when her voice trembled. And perhaps that is the cruel truth and the powerful lesson. Racism forces children to grow too soon, to bear burdens far heavier than their years. But it also shows us that truth, when spoken with courage, can pierce even the strongest walls of silence. Maya's story is not just hers. It echoes the experiences of countless families, past and present, who have faced the same shadow of injustice. And it forces us all to ask, when the innocent can see what the powerful try to deny, how long will we allow silence to protect the oppressor instead of the oppressed?